She paid for her first-class seat, full price, but when they quietly asked her to move to the back of the plane, she didn't protest. The rest of the plane did. What began as one elderly woman standing her ground turned into a flight-wide rebellion and a nationwide conversation. This isn't just a travel story. It's about dignity, justice, and what happens when people say, no more. Watch what the internet called the most powerful silence of the year. Lorraine Parker didn't fly often. At 73, she preferred her garden, her church choir, and the slow rhythm of a life she'd carved out in Charlotte, North Carolina. But when her grandson Amani told her he was graduating from Stanford with honors, first in the family to earn a degree in biomedical engineering, Lorraine didn't hesitate. She booked the ticket that very day. Not coach. Not this time. First class. It wasn't about comfort, not really. It was about what it symbolized. A woman who had spent 35 years teaching in underfunded public schools, raising 4 children after her husband passed, and giving more than she ever got back. She was going to sit at the front of that plane. On her terms. She had chosen the window seat in 2A months in advance. The fare hadn't been cheap, but she'd saved up, just like she always had. This was Amani's moment, and she was going to show up, looking proud, present, and powerful. Lorraine arrived at Charlotte Douglas International Airport wearing her Sunday best, a lavender blouse tucked into high-waisted gray slacks, pearl earrings she'd received on her 40th birthday, and a plum-colored scarf draped loosely around her neck. Her gray hair was twisted into a neat bun. Her leather handbag, worn but lovingly cared for, was tucked firmly under her arm. Every detail was intentional. Every stitch, every step carried years of stories. "Good morning, Miss Parker," the gate agent said after scanning her ticket. Miss Parker. She liked the sound of that. Walking down the jet bridge, she felt a strange sense of anticipation, like the kind she used to feel on the first day of a new school year. As she stepped into the cabin, she was greeted by the sleek interior of the aircraft. Wide leather seats, soft ambient lighting, and a row of well-dressed passengers already sipping coffee and scrolling through tablets. Lorraine found her seat and settled in. She placed her bag under the seat in front of her, pulled her scarf tight, and stared out the window at the runway. The sky was bright. The sun was sharp. This was going to be a good day. A flight attendant approached her with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning. First time in first class?" Lorraine gave a soft chuckle. "That obvious?" "Not at all," the attendant said quickly. "Just making sure you're comfortable." Lorraine nodded politely and turned her attention back to the window. She thought about the years gone by, about how fast Amani had grown, and how many times she'd reminded others, especially young black kids like him, that they had every right to take up space in a world that told them otherwise. That's what this seat meant. Taking up space. Then came the voice. Calm, flat, almost rehearsed. "Ma'am, excuse me," said a different flight attendant, blonde, younger, clipboard in hand. "I'm so sorry, but it looks like there was a seat assignment error. I'll need you to move to 21C just for takeoff." Lorraine blinked. "I'm sorry?" "There was an upgrade issue and a last-minute passenger," the attendant continued quickly. "We need this seat available, but we'll make sure you're compensated." Lorraine didn't raise her voice, didn't flinch. She simply reached into her bag, pulled out her printed boarding pass, and held it out. "This says 2A. I paid for this." The attendant gave a tight-lipped smile. "Yes, and we really appreciate your understanding. We just need you to move this one time." The passenger standing behind the attendant, a white man in his 40s with a crisp blazer and a Bluetooth earpiece, glanced at Lorraine, then quickly looked away. Lorraine's fingers gripped the armrest. Her voice stayed soft, but there was a weight in it. "I'm not trying to cause trouble, but I followed the rules. I came early. I paid full price." The attendant's smile tightened further. "Ma'am, please, we just need to make this adjustment." Lorraine looked around. No one said a word. A man across the aisle glanced at her, then quickly looked down. A young woman 2 rows up peeked over her shoulder, her brow furrowed, but no one spoke. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from something heavier, familiar, that old feeling of being quietly pushed aside. She unbuckled her seatbelt, stood, and walked down the aisle toward the back. past strangers who wouldn't meet her eyes, past flight attendants who wouldn't meet her dignity. Row 21C, smaller, cramped, close to the toilet. She sat down, staring at the floor. She'd been moved before, by systems, by schools, by silence. But this one stung differently. And yet, she didn't say a word. Lorraine stared straight ahead, trying to ignore the strange pressure building in her chest. The low murmur of pre-flight instructions buzzed around her. Seatbelts clicked. A baby cried softly 3 rows up. Someone coughed. The man next to her was already nodding off with a travel pillow under his chin. She folded her hands in her lap and breathed slowly through her nose. "It's okay," she whispered to herself. "You made it on the plane. You're still going. It's okay." But it didn't feel okay. Back in 2A, the man in the blazer had settled in like the seat had always been his. He hadn't even looked at her as she passed. The same attendant who'd moved her was now offering him sparkling water. Lorraine's throat tightened, and then a voice. "Excuse me?" Lorraine turned her head. The woman in the 3rd row, the one with the denim jacket and long curly hair, was standing. Not stretching, not reaching for a bag. Standing like she meant it. "Sorry, I have to ask," the woman said, her voice rising slightly. "Did anyone else see what just happened?" Heads turned. "That lady," the woman pointed toward Lorraine without hesitation, "was sitting in 2A when I boarded. She had her boarding pass. She was early, she was settled, and now she's back in coach?" A murmur stirred through the cabin like wind under a closed door. The flight attendant reappeared quickly, smile firmly in place. "Ma'am, please take your seat. We'll be departing soon." "I'll sit down," the woman said, "after you explain why she was moved." The attendant's mask cracked slightly. "There was a late upgrade, a computer issue." The woman scoffed. "No, there was a choice. You chose to move her, and we both know why." Silence again, but not empty this time. Tense, crackling. Lorraine felt a cold wave wash over her. She didn't want attention. She didn't want to be the reason this plane didn't leave on time. But a second voice joined in. "She's right," came a man's voice from row 4, deep, steady. "I saw the whole thing. You didn't ask that man to move. You asked her." The man stood halfway. He wore a Detroit Lions hoodie and jeans. A middle-aged black man with salt in his beard and fire in his eyes. "You're not going to tell us that wasn't about what she looks like?" The attendant faltered. "Sir, please, let's keep our voices down." "Why? You sure didn't care about dignity 5 minutes ago." More murmurs. Now people were watching for real. A red-haired teenager pulled out his phone, began recording. Lorraine's heart fluttered. Her hands, which had been resting calmly in her lap, began to twitch. The woman in denim sat down, but only to buckle her belt and lean toward the aisle. "She shouldn't have to speak up," she said. "She already did everything right. She's a guest in that seat, just like all of us." A young Latina woman in the aisle across chimed in. "You know what? If she doesn't get her seat back, maybe none of us should sit." The sentence didn't even finish echoing before a ripple of motion moved down the cabin. Another person stood. Then another. "This is wrong. She deserves her seat." "We saw." The cabin transformed. The flight crew stiffened, trying to keep calm while speaking frantically into their radios. The door hadn't closed yet. Protocol was about to kick in. Lorraine sat frozen. She'd spent decades telling students to stand up for themselves, even when it was uncomfortable. But right now she didn't feel brave. She felt exposed. The man from row 4 turned, speaking directly to her. "Miss Parker, ma'am," he said, "do you want your seat back?" She didn't speak right away. Her voice had been quiet for so long. Then finally, gently, "I don't want to delay the flight." "You're not," the woman in denim said. "You're the reason it might finally do the right thing." And just like that, the cabin shifted again. The man in the blazer, still seated in 2A, closed his laptop slowly, his posture wilted under the weight of all those watching eyes. "I didn't ask to be put here," he mumbled, standing. "I just did what they told me." Someone from row 5 said, "That's the problem." And then, space. He walked to the back, escorted quietly by a different flight attendant. Lorraine stood, her legs trembling slightly, but her spine straight. As she made her way back up the aisle, passengers gave her small nods, whispers of support. "You're seen. You mattered. Good for you." Back in 2A she sat again. This time everything felt different. Not because the seat was more comfortable, but because someone had finally stood with her. And that changed everything. By the time Flight 826 landed in Indianapolis, the internet was already on fire. The red-haired teen in row 7 had posted a 30-second video to TikTok titled, "They tried to bump this old black lady out of first class. The whole plane said nope." The clip opened with Lorraine being asked to move, then cut to the woman in denim raising her voice, followed by the bearded man standing, and finally Lorraine quietly returning to her rightful seat. No yelling, no cursing, no dramatic music, just truth. And that was enough. By the time Lorraine turned her phone back on at the gate, she had 14 missed calls, a dozen texts, and an inbox full of subject lines she didn't recognize. She frowned, tapped on a message from her son Malik. "Ma, you're going viral. Like everywhere. You good? Call me." Lorraine blinked. She wasn't on TikTok. She barely used Facebook. Her idea of going viral used to mean the flu in flu season. All she'd wanted was to see her granddaughter graduate. That was still her mission. The rest, it felt like background noise. In the terminal, people whispered as she walked by. A woman in scrubs gave her a gentle smile. A TSA agent nodded respectfully. She found a seat by a window, pulled her phone to her chest, and closed her eyes. It had been a long day. In Lafayette, the wind was cooler, crisper. It carried the smell of early spring in campus coffee shops. Lorraine checked into her hotel with no fanfare. She wasn't here to be a headline. She was here for Dominique, her first grandchild to graduate college, first in the family to earn an engineering degree, the only girl in her class with braids, honor cords, and a perfect GPA. That's what mattered. Still, the world had other plans. By the time she unpacked her bag, the video had racked up over 2.1 million views. Civil rights accounts reposted it with hashtags like "Protect Black Women," "Respect Our Elders," and "Hold the Seat." News outlets were calling the moment a peaceful protest in the sky. Airline representatives stayed silent. Lorraine's daughter Tracy left 3 voicemails. "Ma, CNN just emailed me about you. Did you see the statement from Coastal Air? It's weak. I love you, but please tell me you're okay." Lorraine texted back, "I'm fine. I just need some sleep." But even sleep wouldn't come easy. Her name was trending now. Strangers on Instagram were sharing photos of her sweater, her hands folded calmly in her lap, her steady refusal to be erased. One comment stuck with her. "This is why I bring my grandma everywhere. The world don't treat black women right unless someone films it." She sat with that, not as a compliment, but as a truth. The next morning, a printed letter was slipped under her hotel room door. Emblazoned with the Coastal Air logo, it was thin on accountability and thick with corporate language. "We regret any inconvenience experienced by Ms. Parker during her travel. Coastal Air remains committed to providing inclusive, dignified service for all passengers." "Inconvenience?" Lorraine muttered under her breath. "I've had delayed luggage. That's an inconvenience. What happened wasn't that." She folded the letter once, then again, and placed it inside the hotel trash can. She wasn't interested in apologies that cost nothing. That afternoon, she finally made it to campus. Purdue University buzzed with spring life. Students rehearsed cap tosses, parents held up signs, grandmothers clutched tissues in anticipation. Lorraine stood outside the hall where Dominique would cross the stage the next day. She inhaled deeply, closed her eyes. For a moment, the digital noise faded. She was just a proud grandmother again, until a student walked past, paused, and doubled back. She wore a hoodie that read, "Black Women in STEM." "Excuse me," the young woman said. "Are you the lady from the flight?" Lorraine smiled gently. "I suppose I am." The girl's eyes welled up. "My mom sent me your video last night. She said this is what strength looks like without shouting." "Thank you." Lorraine blinked, then nodded slowly. "You're welcome, baby. You go make us proud." The girl hugged her quickly, then disappeared into the crowd. And Lorraine, well, she stayed right where she was, sunlight warming her shoulders, letting the noise of the world roll off her like wind through the trees. She wasn't chasing headlines, she was chasing legacy. And tomorrow, she'd see it walk across a stage. By Friday afternoon, Lorraine Parker had received 3 more official statements. One came by email, another was delivered in a thin envelope slipped under her hotel room door again, and the last arrived via a carefully worded voicemail from someone calling herself the Director of Passenger Relations at Coastal Air. They all said the same thing, without saying much at all. We regret the discomfort experienced. We are investigating our internal policies. We are committed to creating inclusive experiences. But no one had called what happened to her what it really was. No one had used the word wrong. And that silence said more than any press release. Lorraine didn't cry about it. She didn't call her children or post anything online. She didn't draft a scathing response or make a video. Instead, she sat in the window seat of her hotel room, pen in hand, and began to write something she hadn't expected. A letter. Not for the airline, not for the press, but for the people who needed it. I wasn't trying to go viral. I was just trying to go to my granddaughter's graduation. I didn't stand up to prove a point. I sat down because I had the right to. Because I paid for that right. Because I believed, maybe foolishly, that I didn't have to explain why I belonged in that seat. I've spent my life telling young people they mattered, that their voice mattered, that they had a place in the world even when the world told them otherwise. But here's the truth. It's not always the young who need reminding. Sometimes it's the ones in charge, the ones with clipboards and lanyards and policy binders, who forget how dignity works. So let me remind them, my seat wasn't a gift. It was earned, paid in full, and it should never have been up for discussion. Respect isn't something you give when cameras are watching. It's what you offer because it's right. And I will not apologize for expecting it. She gave the letter to her son, Malik, who asked, "You sure, Ma?" She nodded. "People keep speaking for me. I think it's time they heard from me." He posted it online. By morning, the letter had been shared over 450,000 times. Talk show hosts read it on air. A civil rights attorney in Atlanta quoted it at a fundraiser. A popular Instagram therapist posted, "This is what boundaries look like." Even politicians began referencing the dignity of Miss Lorraine Parker in speeches about elder respect, racial bias, and public accountability. Still, the airline kept quiet. No public statement, no apology with teeth, no direct outreach that wasn't scrubbed clean by PR teams. Until one final envelope arrived, this time by courier. Inside, an invitation. "We'd like to offer you the keynote speaker slot at our annual Diversity and Equity Summit in Dallas. All expenses paid." Lorraine stared at the letter. She could almost hear the boardroom conversation that produced it. Let's turn this into a moment of healing. A partnership opportunity. She can help us shape the narrative. She smiled softly, closed the letter, and dropped it into the wastebasket without hesitation. "Later, do you call?" Later that night, she called the number listed on the invite. A woman named Harper answered, clearly coached and overly enthusiastic. "Miss Parker, we're thrilled you called. We'd be honored to platform your voice. Your grace under pressure has inspired so many." Lorraine waited for the pitch to end, then said evenly, "I didn't speak for your platform. I spoke for myself, for every woman told to move quietly, for every elder asked to be small." A pause. "We understand completely," Harper said, but Lorraine knew they didn't. "I hope your summit goes well," she added, "but I won't be attending." Click. She didn't slam the phone. She didn't cuss or curse or post screenshots. She just sat, peacefully, steady. Because her message had already been heard. And sometimes the most powerful stage is the one you walk away from. It was the kind of morning Lorraine Parker loved. Crisp, full of promise, the sun just peeking over the treetops as she stepped out of her hotel. She wore her Sunday best. A soft navy blue dress that shimmered just slightly in the light, and the pearl earrings her husband gave her the year their first grandchild was born. Today, that same grandchild, Amani Parker, would graduate from Purdue University with a degree in environmental engineering, the first in the family. And Lorraine? She was going to be there, front row, cheering like she used to at high school basketball games, her voice strong and her presence even stronger. She didn't think about the airline. Not really. She had bigger things to celebrate. But still, she noticed the small nods from strangers on campus, security guards, other parents, even two professors who paused as she walked by. One leaned in, quietly. "I saw your video. Thank you, for all of us who've been told to shrink. Lorraine smiled. I'm just a grandmother who paid for her seat. At the stadium, a Purdue staffer in a burgundy blazer met her at the entrance. Miss Parker? She nodded, surprised. The dean asked that you sit here, he said, guiding her down a quiet side path toward a small, reserved section right behind the stage. There, among polished folding chairs and name placards, she found hers. Miss Lorraine Parker, guest of honor. Her breath caught. No spotlight, no speech, just a seat. This time offered, not taken. The ceremony swelled with applause and camera flashes. Names echoed across the loudspeakers like songs. Caps tossed, mothers cried, fathers shouted from nosebleed seats. Lorraine sat still but glowing. Then the name came, Imani Denise Parker. The crowd erupted, but it was Lorraine's voice, loud and proud, that rang out above the rest. That's my baby. Imani grinned from beneath her cap, eyes glistening, and blew a kiss toward her grandmother. Lorraine caught it and pressed it to her heart. Later, under a cluster of trees behind the science building, the family reunited. All three of Lorraine's children, their spouses, and a sea of cousins snapping pictures and fighting over dinner plans. Imani broke from the crowd and walked straight to her grandmother. You made it, she whispered, hugging her tight. Of course I did, Lorraine said. You think a little turbulence was going to keep me from this? They laughed, held on longer than necessary. Grandma, Imani said gently, your letter, it's all over campus. One of my professors cried reading it in class. Lorraine blinked. I didn't mean to cause a storm. You didn't, Imani said. You started a conversation. That night, Lorraine sat on the hotel balcony, sipping chamomile tea while watching families stroll through the park below. She didn't feel viral, or famous, or political. She felt full, of pride, of peace, of place. And that was enough. The next morning, Lorraine returned to the airport. Same airline, same gate, same gray sweater, same quiet grace. But this time, when she boarded, the flight attendant greeted her with a different kind of smile. Not plastic, not forced. Real. Good morning, Miss Parker. First class is straight ahead. Thank you for flying with us. Lorraine didn't nod out of politeness. She nodded with meaning. And when she reached her seat, 2A window, she settled in, placed her bag under the seat, smoothed her skirt, and looked out the window. The sky was wide open. She didn't speak the whole flight, because she didn't have to. Her voice had already gone farther than any plane. What is lesson of this story? 1. Dignity isn't granted, it's claimed. Lorraine didn't raise her voice, she simply refused to shrink. That alone sparked action. 2. Allyship means speaking up, not just watching. Real change started when strangers used their voices for someone else's injustice. 3. Every seat has a story. Sometimes what looks like a small gesture, like asking someone to move, carries decades of history and pain. 4. Respect shouldn't depend on appearance, age, or status. Lorraine had done everything right in life, yet was still treated as invisible. Her story shows how deeply bias is ingrained. Number 5. One act of truth can ripple across a nation. She didn't try to go viral. She just refused to be dismissed. That authenticity is what connected with millions. What do you think about this story? Let's comment below to discuss. And don't forget to subscribe our channel to listen to more interesting stories.